The night Marcus Holden finally understood the meaning of giving was the same night he almost lost everything. Snow fell thick and heavy over the silent streets of a small town in northern Ohio, covering broken sidewalks, darkened storefronts, and abandoned hopes with a fragile layer of white. Inside a cold, barely heated apartment, Marcus sat alone at a narrow kitchen table staring at the last $20 bill he owned. His power was about to be shut off. His fridge was empty, his body ached from exhaustion, and yet, somewhere beyond his thin walls, a cry cut through the winter air, faint but desperate, reminding him that someone else might need that money more than he did. Before this story continues, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and quiet acts of love that change lives, please take a moment to like this video, comment, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps spread stories that remind us we are never alone. Marcus had not always lived like this. Years ago, he had a stable job at a manufacturing plant in Toledo, a modest home, and plans for a future that felt safe. His wife, Rebecca, had been the light in his life, and together they dreamed of building a family, of weekend road trips, of quiet evenings filled with laughter and warmth. But everything changed when Rebecca fell ill. The medical bills arrived, faster than he could pay them, each envelope heavier than the last. Marcus worked overtime, skipped meals, sold his car, and drained his savings, but it was never enough. When Rebecca passed away, the grief hollowed him out, leaving behind a man who barely recognized his own reflection. Soon after, the factory downsized, and Marcus was among the many let go. With no family left and few friends, he drifted into a lonely routine of temporary jobs, cheap apartments, and long, silent nights. That winter was the hardest he had ever known. Each day began before sunrise as he walked miles through icy streets to reach construction sites, warehouses, and diners that needed extra hands. The work was brutal, the pay uncertain, and the hours unpredictable. By evening, his body felt as if it were breaking apart, but sleep offered little relief. The apartment remained cold, no matter how many layers he wore, and hunger became a constant companion. Still, Marcus pushed forward, driven by a stubborn refusal to surrender completely. Somewhere deep inside, a fragile hope remained, flickering like a candle in the dark. One evening, after a 12-hour shift unloading frozen produce from a truck, Marcus trudged home through a snowstorm that blurred the edges of the world. His boots were soaked, his fingers numb, and his thoughts clouded by exhaustion. As he approached his building, he noticed a small figure sitting on the steps, wrapped in a thin blanket. It was a young boy, no older than 8, with dark curls peeking out from beneath a worn knit cap. His face was pale, his eyes red from cold and crying. Beside him sat a woman, her shoulders slumped, her coat threadbare, her gaze distant. The sight struck Marcus with a sharp, unexpected pain, stirring memories of warmth, family, and a life he no longer had. He learned through gentle questioning that the woman's name was Claire, and the boy was her son, Noah. They had been evicted earlier that day after falling behind on rent. With nowhere else to go, they had taken shelter in the stairwell, hoping to avoid the freezing wind. Claire had lost her job as a hotel cleaner after an injury left her unable to stand for long hours, and despite her desperate efforts, every door she knocked on remained closed. Marcus listened quietly, feeling the weight of their story settle heavily on his heart. When he reached into his pocket and felt the crisp edge of the last $20 bill, his chest tightened. That money was meant for bread, soup, and candles to get him through the next few days. Without it, he would face darkness and hunger. But as he looked at Noah's trembling hands and hollow eyes, something within him shifted. The decision did not come easily. Fear and instinct urged him to protect what little he had. Yet, another voice, quiet but steady, reminded him of Rebecca's kindness, of the way she had once given their last meal to a homeless stranger, saying that sometimes faith meant trusting that goodness would return. With a trembling hand, Marcus placed the bill into Claire's palm. The relief and disbelief on her face broke something open inside him. It was not a grand gesture, not a life-changing sum, But in that moment, it meant survival. Claire thanked him through tears, her gratitude raw and overwhelming. Marcus simply nodded, unsure of what to say, and climbed the stairs to his dark apartment, where the cold felt sharper than ever. That night, sleep refused to come. Hunger gnawed at him, and worry spiraled through his thoughts. Had he made a terrible mistake? How would he eat? How would he keep the lights on? Yet beneath the fear, a strange warmth spread through his chest, as if a long-frozen part of his soul had begun to thaw. For the first time in years, he felt connected to another human being. He felt useful. He felt alive. Days passed, each one more difficult than the last. Marcus rationed what little food he had left, skipped meals entirely, and wrapped himself in blankets to fight the cold. He searched tirelessly for steady work, walking miles to fill out applications, enduring rejection after rejection. Some mornings, despair threatened to pull him under, but the memory of Noah's shy smile and Claire's whispered thanks gave him just enough strength to keep going. He reminded himself that even in his emptiness, he had chosen to give, and that choice mattered. Then, on a bitterly cold afternoon, everything changed. Marcus received a call from a local church he had visited weeks earlier while looking for work. A volunteer named Thomas remembered his quiet determination and had recommended him for a maintenance position at a community center. The job offered steady hours, fair pay, and benefits. When Marcus arrived for the interview, his worn clothes and tired eyes contrasted sharply with the bright, bustling building. Still, he spoke honestly about his struggles, his willingness to work, and his desire for stability. By the end of the meeting, he was offered the position. The relief nearly brought him to his knees. With his first paycheck, Marcus paid his overdue bills, filled his fridge, and allowed himself a moment of cautious hope. But the memory of that snowy night remained vivid, and he could not forget the faces of Claire and Noah. Determined to find them, he returned to the building where they had last been. After days of searching, he learned they were staying at a nearby shelter. When he visited, the reunion was emotional. Claire had secured temporary work and was slowly rebuilding her life. Noah looked healthier, brighter, and more at ease. Marcus brought groceries, warm clothes, and small toys for the boy, but more importantly, he brought encouragement, reminding them that their lives still held promise. As weeks turned into months, Marcus became involved with the community center, volunteering extra hours to help families in crisis. He discovered that his own suffering had given him a deep empathy for others, allowing him to connect in ways he never had before. He listened to stories of loss, fear, and resilience, and in doing so, began to heal parts of himself he thought were beyond repair. Giving, he realized, was not just about money. It was about presence, compassion, and the willingness to stand beside someone in their darkest hour. One quiet evening, nearly a year after that snowy night, Marcus sat in his now warm apartment, sipping coffee and watching the lights of the city flicker below. His life was far from perfect, but it was steady, purposeful, and full of meaning. The pain of his past still lingered, but it no longer defined him. Instead, it fueled his desire to make a difference, no matter how small. If this story has touched your heart, reminded you of your own struggles, or inspired you to believe in the power of kindness, please take a moment now to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your engagement helps keep stories like this alive and reaching those who need them most. And before the ending, I have one special request for you. Please comment the word kindness if you believe that even the smallest act of giving can change a life. Marcus often reflected on the fragile chain of events that had led him here, marveling at how a single act of generosity, given when he had almost nothing, had reshaped his future. He understood now that giving was not about abundance, but about faith. Faith that love multiplies, that compassion returns, and that even in our weakest moments, we hold the power to lift someone else. As the snow began to fall softly outside his window once more, Marcus closed his eyes and whispered a quiet thank you for the lesson he had learned, knowing that the true wealth of his life would always be measured not by what he possessed, but by what he was willing to give.